Hi, my name is Sam Led, and welcome to The Fearless Now. This is for you in the nosebleed seats, if you're looking for an easier way to approach anxiety, stress, and unhealthy habits from the inside out. There's no techniques and no strategies, so sit back, relax, and let me be your peace of mind Uber driver, here on The Fearless Now. Welcome to The Fearless Now podcast. My name is Sam Led. I'm a transformation coach, and I'm doing what I love right now. Being of service to you guys, taking this microphone, plugging it in, plugging the mic into the preamp with a clean signal and sharing the wisdom, the insight, and sometimes some really funny daily life circumstances in my life for all of you, for you in the nosebleed seats over there, right there, row F, seat 9, right over there. How you doing, man? How you guys doing? How you doing? Yeah, you get the booster yet? Did you get the booster? Did you get your third shot? I've lost track of how many shots we're supposed to have or what they're telling us we're supposed to have. I just go into the pharmacy and just say, hey, just give me a shot. Hey, whatever you got, whatever cocktail you got to keep me healthy, just give it to me. Oh, no, I'm kidding. I do believe in preventative health, which means, eating your Wheaties, getting enough superfoods in you. Not Wheaties per se, but, blueberries. And I just eat blueberries. It's the way I tint my skin with blueberries. I know that sounds weird, but yeah, preventative health is important. And just as preventative health is important is you supporting this podcast if you can. And again, this podcast is a labor of love. I do this because I want to be of service. I want to be able to share my experience and other people's experience, thought leaders in the principals community, psychologists, therapists, clinicians, other great coaches. And that isn't for free. I have to pay a very talented podcast editor, mixing guy. I guess you would call him a podcast studio editor. I don't know what you'd call him. Anyways, he's wonderful, but he isn't free. Hey, Joel, how you doing? And so it would be great if you could support this podcast any way you can, whether it's $1, $5, $10, whatever you want to donate. And go to the website, buymeacoffee.com/thefearlessnow. buymeacoffee.com/thefearlessnow. 3 times a charm, ladies and gentlemen. buymeacoffee.com/thefearlessnow. And every dollar, every cent counts, making sure this podcast is there for the people who need it. And I want to be able to share this with you for years to come. So buymeacoffee.com/thefearlessnow. buymeacoffee.com/thefearlessnow. So thankful, so grateful. And from my heart to yours. All right, let's get down to business. I just finished recording an episode as a guest, and it's kind of a dream come true. I've always wanted to be a guest on this podcast. It's called the 3PGC, Where Community Voice is Heard podcast. I think that's what it's called. 3PGC, it's the first word, Where Community Voices Are Heard podcast, that really is kind of ground zero for principals, coaches, clinicians that share this understanding. And it's a grassroots podcast. It's wonderful. And it's MC by the brilliant Rob Cook, who's also a coach and incredible human being. And I'm just so blessed that I've given the opportunity to be a guest on that podcast. Go check it out. It's the 3PGC podcast, Where Voices Are Heard. They got a great roster of guests on there. They just recently had Linda Pransky, is one of the more brilliant psychologists / coaches who share the principles and work with clients and relationships and all that good stuff. And I just highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite top 10 podcasts. And go listen, kids. You'll be glad you did. Anyways, what are we going to talk about today? I never really know until I know. And I do a little bit of prep. I write a couple things down, or I don't write things down because I can't read my own handwriting. It's pretty embarrassing sometimes when my phone dies and I forget to bring my charger, ADHD moment. And I have to pull over at a gas station and ask for directions, and I write them down in a hurry. And then I get back on the freeway and I don't know where the hell I'm going because I can't read my handwriting. And then I have to pull over again. It's pretty embarrassing, but it makes for a good belly laugh. I laugh to myself and cry at the same time. Well, I wanted to share with you a little bit of a possible additional chapter that we're adding to my soon-to-be released first writing effort, my first book called Fearless, and kind of give you a taste of what I see with my Technicolor Neurodiverse ADHD brain. If you can say that 5 times fast, well, you guys are too cool for school. So this is a good introduction to what I want to talk about today is folks with a neurodiverse brain, whether it's ADHD or whatever you were labeled with, which really doesn't mean anything anyways. To be completely honest, you could have a neurodiverse brain and call your diagnoses a ham sandwich. Doesn't really matter to me. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with any of you. So I would like to just read a couple sentences, first 2 paragraphs, and just want you to just sit back and just listen and kind of understand that just because someone like myself and others like me, we just think a little bit differently. And it's hard to language that. It really is hard to language that because I find myself having difficulty languaging it, to explain to people what it's like to have this very fast neurodiverse mind that is not perfect, but does a lot of great things. But I've been told and conditioned that does a lot of bad things, does a lot of things that so-called quote unquote normal people don't experience or don't do, which is complete nonsense. And for those of you out there that have been indirectly stigmatized by the label of ADHD or whatever it is that you went to a mental health professional or a school psychologist and were diagnosed with, please take it with a grain of salt. You're perfect. Underneath the noise, you're perfect. The label does not matter because what I want all of you to do before I start reading this, I'm getting off on a tangent, by the way. What I want all of you to do is to write down 10 or 15 qualities that you love about yourself. I know you can find 10 or 15 things that you love about your superpowers, what you're good at, okay? What makes you you, not what people tell you you are about or what you need to work on or what your dysfunction is or what your disability is or what your fill in the blank problem is that you need to fix, manage, treat, make better. It's amazing how much time we spend. And again, I'm on my bully pulpit. It's very Amazon basic soapbox I got on sale, proverbial soapbox, that we never focus on what our superpowers are. We have to find those out for ourselves. But when we go to school, our education tells us what we're not good at, what we need to work on, unless we take the ASVAB test when we're a senior in high school. And that's only good for, it's a military qualification test that helps point out some of your strengths. But besides that, no one's going to explore that for you. You have to find that on your own, what your gifts and talents are, if you don't know already. And for some of us, it takes a long time. It's taken me into middle age to figure out really what my calling is, which is being a podcaster, being a writer, being a coach, being of service, and making a living doing it. Besides being an amazing partner sometimes to my beloved girlfriend and having a fun and unconventional life. And that's what I see, what took me 4 decades to see. Well, not for the first couple of years because I was too young to understand, which is a good thing, right? But now I am really seeing that I have to find this out for myself, just like you do. And then when anyone is telling you what you can't do, what your limitations are, or what you'll never be able to do because of your ADHD or because of your OCD or because of your learning disability, take a look at them, smile, thank them for whatever you paid them for, or that school psychologist or that guidance counselor. Thank them for the advice or words of wisdom and turn around and walk out that fucking door and let it go through one ear and out the other, because that's not who you are. All of you have gifts and talents. All of you have skills and abilities. Sometimes you just don't know it because we're so caught up in the noise, caught up in the drama that the brain is innocently spewing out because it wants to protect itself, keep us safe. And unfortunately, we believe the nonsense. Okay, let me read this possible additional chapter. It's called What I See with My Technicolor Neurodiverse ADHD Brain. I see beyond words and the sentences that they form. I can feel their meaning contextually or otherwise. It is a visceral experience, kind of like a chocoholic's first bite into a chocolate-covered truffle. Colors of flowers, magazine covers, smartphone screensavers, and even the leaves on the trees can be distractingly yet deliciously technicolor. That's like an after-image burned into me. Listening to an everyday Billy Joel ballad on my earbuds feels like sitting next to Phil Ramone at the mixing console, watching Billy in the sound booth singing She's Always a Woman. I get lost in it. From intro to coda, words do the same thing. They do leap out at me on every page. Words have a heartbeat. They move around and feel alive or feel lifeless and dead. Some words feel so real that they take on a life of their very own. I'm that hyper-focused. I am that zoomed in. It's not surprising that some of the best writers in contemporary literature are neurodiverse. The storyline or characterization rarely matters. It's the feeling and meaning that comes in so strongly. The meanings of such words dissolve into one another, like a Van Gogh watercolor. And I wrote that, and I'm probably going to put it in and need some editing. I want to read you one more paragraph. Kind of give you an idea of how sensitive this brain of mine is. And I think it's close to 2.5% of the population has some form of ADHD. And there was a clinician, I forgot his name, a neurologist out there. I think he's at NYU. I have to look him up, but you can Google him, who said that 75% of people out there probably have ADHD. Suspect. I don't know if I believe that. There's a lot of neurodiverse minds out there that are just sensitive. There's nothing wrong with, but sometimes we feel completely broken and dysfunctional to no fault of our own. And then we remember again who we are. So this is another example of how sensitive a neurodiverse mind is, or at least my mind is. Going to the movies is the Valhalla of sensory candy for an ADHD brain, and many times a sensory overload. Do you remember the scene in the 1994 Tarantino gonzo hit Pulp Fiction, where John Travolta's character must administer an intracardiac injection of adrenaline into Mia Wallace's heart after she overdoses on heroin? Remember how you felt? You probably jumped out of your seat. Yeah, that intense. Now multiply that feeling by 100. Movies for me can either be my best friend or worst enemy. I can either go somewhere and it's the greatest adventure roller coaster ride story, or I remember it for years on end and it still haunts me in my dreams, which over 40, it's like, okay, what's the big fucking deal? But just understanding that we can create space for people like myself that just have a more sensitive system on board, which gets me to what I really want to share. I know I'm already almost in 16 minutes and I still haven't shared what I want to share, but it's the drama around ADHD that we innocently get caught up in because we do have a sensitive supercomputer between our ears that's doing its best, jumping around, creating all kinds of drama because the brain creates drama and then solves drama. That's 100% fact. There's no problem in life. It's only the story that's being created in real time, the illusion that's being created in real time by a brain that wants to keep you safe. And it thinks it can keep you safe, keep you alive, keep you breathing by creating all kinds of drama and story. And that's an evolutionary thing. And our mind has not really had a software update since caveman times. And I say that every episode just to remind you that your brain is going to make mistakes. It's going to slip up. It's perfectly imperfect. But underneath all that noise, you're perfect. All of you. You, and you over there in the nosebleed seats. And so the needless drama that is created, especially for a sensitive ADHD brain, is probably the biggest gift. And I say this not to sound sanctimonious or idealistic or to sugarcoat things, because I don't sugarcoat shit. I'm not Willy Wonka. I'm just a guy with a podcast who's a coach who cares about people, who wants to see them flourish. And the drama, when we get caught up in the noise, when we overreact to someone, whether we get cut off in the freeway or someone says something that we think is a slight or not nice, that we just didn't understand because our brain works so quickly that we missed the cue. We missed the intonation. We missed the tone in the person's voice, thinking that we were somehow being taken for a ride or they were being sarcastic. And it's very normal. I mean, even some folks without ADHD have this issue. There are just sensitive brains out there. And that's part of this brilliant neurodiverse mind that just needs a little extra TLC. But knowing that sometimes we do overreact is the most brilliant gift ever. And I tell you this much, it's because we don't allow ourselves to be afraid of that reactivity. I stopped being afraid of my moods once I saw the gift of mood. Like, only thing that getting caught up in the drama of your ADHD is telling you is that you're off center. You're farther away. You're temporarily far away from your true nature, from who you are. That if you give it an hour, you give it a couple minutes, your thinking will settle and you'll get back down to who you are. You'll get out of the thought turbulence and get present again, that you don't have to be afraid of your moods. I stopped being afraid of my moods. It took me a long time to do that because I was always afraid that I was going to either hurt someone's feelings, that I was going to be inappropriate, that I couldn't share the true essence of me, thinking that my moods were too much for people, that I need to tone it down. I was always told I need to tone it down, keep it down. And that's all bullshit conditioning. But that's not the truth. Part of this thing called the human experience, this human psychology that we live in day to day, this thought-based universe that we live in day to day, is having moods. And the realization that those moods fluctuate during the day, that you're going to be in a low mood sometimes. You're going to feel cranky sometimes. You're going to be overwhelmed sometimes. But just allowing yourself to be overwhelmed without judging yourself and learning how to be more compassionate towards yourself. Focus on number one first, and then you can focus on everyone else. And the more we have that understanding under our belt, the realization that we don't need to fix anything about us. Not one thing. Under the noise, every single one of you is perfect. And the more we try to use modalities or techniques or affirmations to try to calm ourselves down or to bring down the noise, well, the louder it can get. It's too much work. All you need to do is have that realization that you're going to get into a bad mood sometimes, that you're going to fly off the handle sometimes, that you're going to say things you don't mean sometimes. But if the people in your life are part of the right tribe, that they accept you for you, love you, despite what comes out of your mouth sometimes, you're golden. You can't make people like you. You can't tiptoe around your humanness. You have to be yourself, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that's with all of us. There is no perfect self. It's funny, I always had a hard time with people that were too polite, right? Too polite, but they weren't genuine about it. And you know what I mean. You can tell intuitively when people are just trying to put a mask over them, trying to hide behind their politeness. And it's not believable. And I just want to say to them, cut the bullshit, just be yourself. It's good enough. Just be yourself. And that's hard in this world, right? Because we live in a cancel culture type of existence. We live in a world sometimes people just, because they don't understand or because they have their own stuff they're dealing with or their own shtick or their own very sensitive neurodiverse minds, get insulted and you're canceled, right? You're fired, as the Donald would say. Well, you know what? Life is too short to be worried all about that shit. So for all those ADHDers out there that you think you've offended someone because of your reactivity or your low mood, it's okay. If they're truly your partner, your friend, your colleague, they'll always come back to you. That's unconditional. And if they don't, well, they're not part of your tribe. And that is really, really liberating. And when I saw that in myself, and it took me decades to see that, being middle-aged now, well, it's better late than never. And I'm glad I saw that because the full totality of Sam is what I have to share with the world. And if you don't like it, well, nothing I can do about it. Go find your own tribe. There's a tribe for everybody out there, ladies and gentlemen. Just have to look around. Hope this has been helpful. My name is Sam Blood. I am a transformational coach. This is the Fearless Now podcast. And again, please, if you love what you hear, buy me a coffee. And I say that in italics because really it's, you can just donate $1, $5, $10 if it's a very expensive coffee that your gourmet beans, flown in from some exotic land. Go for it. The website is buymeacoffee.com/thefearlessnow. 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 Thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your week.